Woo! It's up! Drop it. All right, power panel. Cenk Uygur, John Idarola from Damage Report, Farron Cousins from Ring of Fire. Farron, good to have you, brother.
It's good to be here again.
All right, excellent. So we've got lunatic right-wing conspiracy theories because, of course, we do. A third of the country has totally lost their minds. They could be checked into mental health clinics. So we're going to get to a lot of those, and then we've got an internal fight within the Democratic Party, of course. And then guess which country Tucker Carlson wants us to invade? If you haven't heard the story, you will not be able to guess. Okay, all right, John.
Okay, we should start a pool for the next country he'll want to invade.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's jump into very serious news. Footage of the attack on the husband of Nancy Pelosi has now been released. We're gonna show you this footage. Understand this is an incredibly graphic bit of video of an attempted assassin of Nancy Pelosi attacking her husband. So bear that in mind as we go forward.
640. Oh, 40. Yeah, it literally said in there. Hi, how you doing?
Oh yeah.
What's going on, man?
Everything's good.
Hi. Drop the hammer.
Nope. Hey.
What is going on right
I'm
now?
not getting an answer on call. Carlson in the area that is coming in, yeah.
I got him. Ever 14, ever 10, backup code 3.
Wow, that is every bit as graphic as you would expect it would be, considering the initial description, the horrendous injuries suffered by Paul Pelosi. We have a lot more on this, but it looks like you have an immediate reaction.
Yeah, I just want to say one quick thing there. So as you're going to see as this plays out, Paul Pelosi's trying to get the cops to come to his house, right? And he's been trying to talk DePape down so that DePape doesn't attack him before the cops arrive. That's why he's got his hand on the hammer. That's why he's like this, and that's the only. It might be the only police altercation video that we've covered on the Young Turks in 20 years where I was thinking, I wish the cops had shot him, like that they had fired, because I'm like, he's gonna use the hammer. Now, of course, benefit of hindsight, I'm not blaming the cops. It was very hard to tell.
All happened very fast.
Yes, and Pelosi was standing right next to him, so I'm not blaming them. But man, that was a rare instance where I was like, oh, I wish they'd taken more physical action the cops had against the assailant. And I literally never said that before.
Yeah.
And as you're gonna see here, the guy broke in earlier, and also it has not stopped the right wingers from any of their conspiracy theories. All over social media, they still say the same exact things, even after seeing that horrific video and more overwhelming evidence of the break-in.
Yeah, literally nothing can come out, no evidence can come out that is going to change their mind. We'll get into that, but first I want to give you information. This video was released because Judge Stephen Murphy of San Francisco Superior Court ordered it to be released. There had been news organizations that had been pushing for it. We're gonna give their argument. But first, in addition to this, you also have portions of a police interview with the suspect, which I think also it should be considered kind of crucial evidence for figuring out what we should take away from this attack. We've seen this before in text form, but here's a bit of that actual police interview.
It's like, the founding fathers, it's like they fought the British, they fought the tyranny, they didn't just surrender to it. And when I left my house, I left to go fight tyranny. I did not leave to go surrender.
So this is, as is so often the case, one of these right-wingers engaging in an act of targeted political violence who wants nothing more than for you to understand exactly what his motivation was, and thus that video and all details similar to it will be completely ignored by the right wing going forward. So before we jump into the conversation, the news, because the release of the video is contentious. Many people are wondering, is it necessary for people to see this? The lawyer arguing for the news organization, the sort of consortium of news organizations, says these are open facts, they are known facts. The public's right of access should not be dependent on conspiracy theories. Now, I don't know Thomas Burke, I don't know if he's operating in good faith. That same argument could be made by an honest person who just wants transparency, or it could be Jesse Waters' personal lawyer, I don't know. What I do know is that either way, and we could have predicted this, now it's been proven, all of this video coming out is not going to stop the conspiracy theories, because the conspiracy theories are not based in an honest disagreement about the facts and an honest desire for more information. The right wing is never gonna be presented with a piece of information that is gonna result in them saying, oh, we've messed up. And Tucker Carlson's gonna come forward and say, it looks like this guy watched a lot of our type of content and he went way too far and it's terrible and we're gonna rethink our business model going forward. That is never going to happen. The conspiracy theories are not based in honesty. And so whether this is an honest request to try to get around that or not, it's not going to work.
Yeah, before we get into more analysis, actually, I do want to show the debate breaking into the House, because it's really important that you guys see that. Because a lot of the right-wing conspiracy theories, obviously completely imagined, completely made up, with not one piece of evidence, because they're all lunatics at this point. And now if I meet a Republican, I assume they're a lunatic, but it's a rebuttable presumption. They could prove that they are not a lunatic, but they're gonna have to prove it because they believe in nonsense like this. So here, can we show DePape breaking into the House? Yeah, so that's him hitting the back door with a hammer. I watched that whole 4 or 5 minute tape of that, of him breaking in, and it's super scary because he just casually walks to the backyard, seemingly backyard, and he's got his materials, he's got his duct tape, he's got his zip ties, etc. He calmly gets his stuff together. Meanwhile, Pelosi's sleeping upstairs, right? And has no idea that there's this lunatic in his backyard. And then the guy starts hammering and a little bit of hammering and then eventually wailing away, as you see there. So I have one exception we'll get to. One right-wing host has now said, yeah, it turns out they didn't know each other, all the conspiracy theories were wrong, etc.
You mean that Elon Musk was wrong when he basically asserted that it was some sort of gay affair?
By the way, the ones who all asserted this were Elon Musk, He removed his tweet a couple hours later. It was from he had put it attached some idiot right-wing site. Which, by the way, is there a non-idiot right-wing site? Is there a non-lying right-wing site? Correct answer: no. No, if you read a right-wing website, you should assume that everything in it is a lie. Sometimes when someone is not lying, a Republican is not lying, we'll do breaking news as I'm going to later. There's one host who's not lying here, and it's a bit shocking, okay? But Ted Cruz, Elon Musk, Donald Trump Jr., Candace Owens, they all were like, oh yeah, I bet they were together. Bunch of absolute moron lunatics. It's not debatable, it's not 50-50. Ted Cruz is a terrible person, terrible. Just to know that a person's head was hammered in, and that is your colleague's husband. And to falsely, you think Ted Cruz doesn't know that they weren't together? He knows. These vile pieces of crap that are Republicans. Not one of them has apologized, not one. Because they don't care about the truth. They actively hate the truth. They brainwash their idiot followers into believing this insanity. So there's a giant mental health problem in this country, gigantic. A third of the country has lost its mind, and I don't know what to do about it. All right, Farron, weigh in.
You know, it's hard to follow that up a little bit, but no, I think you absolutely you spot on. What we're dealing with right now with the right, conspiracy theories aside, is that level of violence. And to watch it unfold in that video, it sends shivers down the spines of not just the members of Congress who've had to beef up their security, which we've been talking about for years, but also people like us. I know very well that each and every one of us has gotten threats from some lunatic here or there saying, I'm gonna come and do this thing to you. I'm going to do it to your families. We've all gotten that. And to see it unfold, it just puts that thought in your head like that could be us. We could be next. That could be my back door. And so that's, to me, one of the reasons why this is so terrifying. And then, of course, when you add in just the sheer stupidity and ignorance and hatred that these Republicans have by spreading these conspiracy theories that are all debunked in those clips that you just showed. Like, you don't even have to watch the full minutes and minutes and minutes of videos. Just from what you've shown there proves that these people are lying to you, and you're choosing to accept the lie rather than to spend just a couple moments of your life looking at this tape and realizing everything you've been told by these people is an utter lie. And so those are my two big things with this. One, we've all gotten those threats, never knowing exactly, is this person just, a wacko 1,000 miles away, or is this person down the block from me? And just the sheer refusal to accept reality on the right. Those are my two big things here.
Yeah, so far I have not yet seen this whole day any Republicans, there must have been some, I guess, but I'm not positive, come out and say, horrified, we're so sorry. At a minimum, we're so sorry that she had to go through this, let alone, in the beginning when the attack first happened, some Republicans put out press releases saying, yeah, I guess it's bad to try to murder the Speaker of the House's husband, okay, very mild statements. But today they should be like horrified, nothing. You know why? Because they're not horrified. Nope. It's stochastic terrorism. They egg on their base that they know is not that bright. That's why Tucker Carlson always says these lunatic things, because he knows the people watching not that bright. They'll believe anything. So they just egg them on. They go, oh, whoops, look, another one of our fans wound up trying to murder you.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess you caught a tough break. Until next time. And that's what we have to deal with here. So there are fascists among us, a lot of them, and these are super scary times.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people incredibly worried about what tonight on Fox is going to be like. Not only with what's coming out of Memphis, when that video and all that, God only knows what they're going to be saying on that network, but for this as well. Honestly, silence probably preferable to the takes they'll have. And I know that in the immediate aftermath, like a couple days after the initial attack, they were posting jokes. They thought it was the funniest thing ever. People posting costumes of them dressed up as the assassin who tried to murder Nancy Pelosi. Don Jr. putting on Instagram photos of all of that stuff. They thought it was hilarious that someone bashed in this old man's head. Like, we're supposed to be crazy radicals. We're supposed to be like, they are proving everything we're saying about who they are and what they want. They wish he had succeeded in killing Nancy Pelosi. It is not a radical thing to say that. It is extreme to believe anything other than that. And we're gonna see what they're gonna make out of all of this evidence. But why don't we go to Fox's initial reaction to what's been unveiled. It looks like this isn't enough evidence. They want more. Let's hear them make the case.
Where is the evidence of a breaking and entering? I get what you're saying, Sandra, about always casing the area.
There's video of him breaking through the house. There's video of him
breaking through the house.
Okay, it's on the screen right now.
Okay.
No, and I assume it's with the hammer that you later see him with. But there's clear video that we have been given outside of the house. The attacker's on the right side of the screen breaking through the house.
Got it. Well, okay, great. Then maybe
he's clearly using that to break in.
Yeah, okay, but what? Can't we talk more about what is the DOJ doing? Are we supposed to just give a hall pass on such an important fact? That to me, I think there was a clear narrative that the DOJ wanted to propagate in this, and we've been going through this with other occasions, with the Hunter Biden thing, with the Mar-a-Lago, search warrant. I think that's really, to me, the biggest takeaway. That why is there not truth in what happened with that entry?
You're watching the entry right then. All he wants is proof of entry. Oh, it's there? Oh, I didn't care enough all day to even Google it, to take a look if it was out there. Oh, okay, so that destroys my whole narrative. Hunter Biden, Mar-a-Lago, Russia, something, anything. I don't have a functioning brain. I'm just here to get people to clap for me, maybe give me some of their money. I don't know who that individual is. I don't care. No one should care. He's just there to spread conspiracy theories. That's it. And as soon as it's shot down, and credit to the Fox host for at least admitting what was already publicly available, he immediately just goes vaguer. Something must be going on about, again, the entry. He's seeing the guy break in, and that's not enough evidence. He's seen the break in, he's seen him bash his head in. He's gonna go back to tweeting about how it's a gay affair later on tonight.
So the DOJ reference that he's making is in the conspiracy theories. They say that the Department of Justice is pretending that DePape broke in because they're the deep state. When DePape didn't break in, him and Pelosi have been longtime acquaintances, relationship, etc. The Department of Justice is lying about it. So they show the tape of the guy breaking in, and he goes back to, it's very questionable, the Department of Justice is saying. No, that tape proves beyond any doubt that the Department of Justice was telling the truth. But guys, that's what I'm trying to convey to you. For most right-wingers, they don't care what's true. And that's so shocking to us. We just are having trouble comprehending it. Like, because our whole lives, if you're a rational person, you've grown up thinking it matters what's true. They're just saying, like about a third of the country is just saying, I don't care. I don't care what's factual, I don't care what's rational, I don't care what's logical. I can see a tape of a guy breaking in and say, he's not breaking in, and the Department of Justice is lying about him breaking in. Even with my own eyes, I see it right there. I don't care. I don't. In fact, guys, I put out a tweet about this, or two of them. Every right winger commenting, not just including blue checks, every one of them says, "Oh yeah, no, this proves we were right." Well, he's in his pajamas. It's like 2, 3 in the morning. What the hell is he supposed to be in?
3-piece suit, obviously.
Like, no, you are mentally ill. Check yourself into a facility, okay? Now, look, we, unlike the right wing, are fair. So the anchors there, Smith and Roberts, they did a good job of at least checking him. Why is the guy on the air? Because before the tape came out, every Fox producer, everybody at Fox goes, oh, okay, let's get the conspiracy theorist on here. Let's tell them, oh yeah, it's Pelosi's fault. It's Pelosi's fault. This shows that they're even more wrong. Okay, and then oops, they got the tape just before the guy came on.
Yeah.
And then they showed the tape, and Smith and Roberts, to their credit, were like, I have eyes. No, that's not what's happening, okay? Yeah. And now here's the credit to the other right winger. And guys, now literally anytime a right winger, whether it's a pundit or a politician, tells the truth, it's breaking news. That's why I'm giving this to you. Glenn Beck said this proves that the conspiracy theories are wrong. And I was like, whoa, oh my God.
Jeez.
That is literally shocking to have a right-wing pundit say something that's true once. It's shocking. I was like, I couldn't believe it. Hey, one right-winger is telling the truth about something that is exceedingly obvious. I don't know how we're gonna live together. I don't know how. All right, Farron.
I wouldn't have guessed in a million years that it was Glenn Beck that came out and said, I guess the conspiracy theories are wrong. So I'm glad I didn't put any money on that. But that guy on Fox right there, because I want to go back to what John said, he kind of malfunctioned. And he really did, like you saw his brain, like his whole world shattered for just a moment because he suddenly realizes, oh no, I can't go with this conspiracy theory. So he stutters and stammers. Well, Biden deep state. So his brain, you're watching it in real time, starts throwing out all of these conservative buzzwords at the same time, and he's doing everything he can to just spew it right there on the air. And he doesn't. I guarantee you, he has no idea what he said after that. Right? The little hamster got off the wheel and is getting some water, and the brain just stopped. So he tried to piece together every other conspiracy theory he has.
Yeah.
And it was almost beautiful to watch it because that is what their brains do. You can tear down one of their conspiracy theories and then they immediately start assembling a new one to make the world make sense. Yep. This is a coping mechanism for them. It's not just pushing a political agenda. They do it to make their world make sense, and we just got to see it happen in real time there.
100%. Yeah. It's not about, as Cenk was getting into, the search for truth. It's objective oriented. They do not want a national reckoning on political violence and extremism. And so no matter how obvious and indisputable the instances of it are, they're going to find some reason to throw aspersions on it, make it an LGBTQ conspiracy theory, or just ignore it if they have to. And so as the evidence gets even more incontrovertible in this case, I assume they're gonna move on to other stuff. I don't know, what's Twix up to recently? They'll find something to fill the time.
Yeah, look, last two things for me is one, every time Ted Cruz goes and talks to a reporter, they should ask him, have you apologized yet to Nancy Pelosi and Paul Pelosi for lying about what happened to them and insinuating horrific things, you goddamn monster, okay? Well, but they won't. Maybe you'll get a question or two in the beginning. It'll be like a little bit of a gotcha, and then everybody will let it go, right? And then but the thing that drives me crazy is that they will then go back the very next day and take his proposal seriously. Oh, well, you'd like to do more tax cuts for the rich. Well, that sounds like a great idea. Well, that's a legitimate idea. I bet it's not because of your campaign contributors or you're an honest person. No, they are not honest people. Look, I don't know that the mainstream media is honest either. But if they are, they can't get it through their thick skulls that the Republicans are all constantly lying because in every story, well, the Republicans say this and the Democrats say that. God, if you find a reporter, please let them know so they can determine which one is true and which one isn't. But for us, hey, we're mainstream media. We're gonna say they're both equally valid. And you notice what John led with. The guy said, by the way, you should know this too. He says to the cops that he had planned to get Nancy Pelosi and break her kneecaps with that hammer. So and he was completely non-apologetic about it. And what did he talk about? Government tyranny.
Yep.
Now you will see going forward, forget about the past, going forward, you'll see, because we're right, we're 100% right. You will still see Republican politicians and Republican talk show hosts all talking about government tyranny. You really should do something about government tyranny. That's why you have your Second Amendment rights, because of government tyranny. So I always say, like, what do you want them to kill cops? You want them to kill the military? Which government tyranny are you talking about? But of course, what they really mean is go murder Democrats.
Yep.
Jesus Christ, this is the country we live in now. Now, is every Republican gonna do that? No, there's 100 million Republicans in the country. But out of that 100 million, are they going to find a couple of DePapes or a couple of dozen or a couple of hundred DePapes? Well, they already have. Trying to kidnap the governor of Michigan, driving a truck full of bombs that had, they claim bombs into Washington, D.C., the pipe bombs on January 6th. We can go on and on. We've shown you dozens of cases of right-wing idiots who believed maniacal, hateful right-wing politicians and pundits who told them, it's government tyranny. Aren't you going to do something about it?
Yep. Well, we've got a lot more to get to. We're going to take our first break. We'll be right back.
All right, guys, don't forget, you can get annual membership and maybe get your money back and then some by winning a $100 Blue Apron gift card, or you could win other TYT merch or Too Strong coffee if you go to tyt.com/spin. That's the way to get annual membership, spin the wheel afterwards in the email that you get and win prizes that largely make up for the price of membership anyway, but not every time, just to be clear, okay? So tyt.com/spin, and that's a QR code. And then don't miss Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Rishi on Monday, because he's gonna be joined by Ricky Smiley of the Ricky Smiley Morning Show. And that's, of course, at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific, immediately following a show called The Damage Report. And by the way, if you're one of the 3 people who have not gone to watch Indisputable yet, youtube.com/indisputable_TYT. That's how you can get there. All right, let's go to our members. Amaze54321 says, both the left and the right and have their issues, but only one side advocates for and commits violence. Yes, we tell you every time, don't ever do anything physical. If you ever do anything violent, that means you have surrendered in the battle of ideas. You're saying, I'm so stupid, I can't even make a policy case, I can't make any kind of case, so I'm going to resort to violence. It is an active act of surrender and an admission that you are stupid if you do violence. The right wing goes, yeah, what else do you think we have? Okay, Shy Coltrane 42 says, I was hearing the right wing immediately after the video was dropped, the implication being there was something going on, i.e. a gay hookup gone wrong, there's no bottom with these fools. No, instantly, as soon as the guy's breaking in with a hammer. Oh, he hammers an 82-year-old in the head with it. They're like, aha! Just like we covered with Damar Hamlin conspiracy yesterday, right? There must be something going on because he wore sunglasses. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter at all. You see how dark it was outside? I don't know what that means. Yeah, he broke in the middle of the night. It doesn't matter. You see the doorknob? It doesn't matter. They just point to one thing. And by the way, when I say I pick those things randomly, like the doorknob, I guarantee you, right wingers, if they're watching, not all of them, but a lot of them, like, oh. They say that almost after everything. Jesus. Art Guy says, of course the right are ignoring the evidence. They want to continue provoking stochastic terrorism. I'm afraid that is true. Camp Corona Dad says, as he watches the video of the guy breaking in, he basically do not believe your eyes and ears. It's kind of exactly what that guy was saying on Fox News. We'll be back. right, back on TYT Power Panel. Thank you, John Irola, Farron Cousins, and Andy Shimkus and Brad David, because they just became Young Turks members by hitting the join button below the video. You guys are awesome. You make this show possible. And yes, you help us get the truth out there, which is sorely needed in media, unfortunately. You could also, of course, join through tyt.com/join. All right, John.
Okay, let's get into it. Let's jump into this.
We're blessed in this nation with abundant natural resources, but apparently we're cursed by liberal politicians who don't want us to tap into those abundant resources. Go and learn. Go and learn for yourself about this. Educate yourself on how America attained its low emissions. If you care about the air quality, you care about climate change. Natural gas is what got America there. Educate yourself on that.
That is Representative Jeff Duncan. I believe he represents the great state of fossil gas manufacturing, I guess. That's who he's there to protect the interests of. He's furious at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for disagreeing with him on a debate having to do with drilling. So let me give you the details of what was going on. So they were able to pass this legislation to increase oil drilling on public lands. Of course, it's not going to pass the Senate, and it would be vetoed anyway. But get used to it. This is what the House is like now. This bill was introduced by House Energy and Commerce Chairwoman Kathy McMorris Rodgers. It would require the government to approve a plan to increase drilling on federal lands and waters prior to any non-emergency drawdown of the strategic reserve of petroleum. The percentage of public lands and offshore waters that leased would be required to increase by the same percentage as any drawdown from that reserve. So basically, if it's not, from their point of view, an emergency, and you take 10% of the oil out of the strategic reserve, then you have to increase the total amount of acres of federal land leased to fossil fuel companies by 10%. Why does that make sense? Why would those two things be related? I don't know. They're not making a case for it. They just think that it would be awesome if it was. They're especially mad, though, that following the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the spike in gas prices, Joe Biden decided to tap into the strategic reserve to try to lower the cost of gas, which is something presidents have done multiple times over the last couple of decades. They were furious about this because it did, at least in the short term, have the effect of lowering the cost of gas. And they didn't want the cost of gas to go down. It was a very convenient thing to complain about in the run up to the midterm elections. That gas was so expensive. They would go on Fox News, they'd complain about the cost of gas, and then they would block literally any attempt to lower that cost. And so they want to make it illegal for him to do that in the future. That thing that he did, that if Donald Trump had still been president, he totally would have done as well. And so what does this have to do with AOC? Well, she's not a fan of that, obviously. She was speaking out against it. And in addition, she was saying that leases should not be provided to any oil company that engages in stock buybacks, which is certainly a relevant topic, considering that Chevron alone announced this week they were going to be engaging in $75 billion worth of stock buybacks. It is the proof, if any additional proof was needed, that the increase in prices last year was not about the supply chain or the cost of production. It was price gouging. Plain and simple. They doubled their profits last year, and now they're going to reap the benefits of that by buying their stock back and making their executives even more fabulously wealthy. And so he didn't like that she was pointing that out. She's there to represent the people. He's there to represent ExxonMobil and Chevron, and here is how it played out.
Natural gas is what got America there. Educate yourself on that. Then we can have a better debate about future resources, future energy production.
I understand in this body it's not the first time that it seems as though the opposing side can't seem to be able to debate the issue. And so they must come after my character. While I cannot control the fact that the other side seems to have made the assumption that I am uneducated or what they may say about my worldview, one of the things that I can say is that while I may not work for Wall Street, that is true. I may not be here with the mission to increase profits for corporations. That is true. My mission here is for the well-being and dignity of our family and our planet's future. Moreover, when we talk about education, we should all take it upon ourselves in this body to educate ourselves on the science of the challenge of climate change that is before us.
Now, the Republicans largely won out on their bill, although they didn't get everything that they individually wanted. Marjorie Greene had some stupid amendment that got like 15 votes, which means that the vast majority of Republicans even voted against it. So that's hilarious. But that was the little disagreement. She's pointing out that we should pass regulations that benefit the people rather than the stock price of fossil fuel companies, and he was incredibly aggrieved by that.
Yeah, so he interrupted in a rude way. He didn't address the chair. There's all these little details too as to the sign of disrespect. And then he says, derisively, you should get yourself educated. Now, AOC's response was very good, and she talked about, corruption basically, but a little bit obliquely, referring to campaign donations, etc. But great, I love it. I'll take it. So I'm not trying to criticize her when I say this. It was a very good response. But this is why I wish I had won when I ran for Congress. Because if Jeff Duncan had made the mistake of saying that to me, I would have said, listen, I'm not gonna sit here and take advice from a guy, and I would already, I would have studied every one of their campaign contributions. I would have already done speeches on it. So I would have brought up however much money that the crook Jeff Duncan took from oil companies and gas companies. And I would have brought that out. But let's say that you didn't have that available, but he definitely takes it. We say, look, I'm not going to ask to get educated by a guy who's a crook, who takes this money and serves the oil companies and the gas companies 100%. And by the way, Representative Duncan should go get an education, because then he might find out that 99% of the world's scientists believe that climate change is real and it's man-made. But since Representative Jeff Duncan is a complete and utter moron, he thinks, no, he knows better than the world's 99% of the world's scientists. He thinks the scientists in Botswana and India and America and Russia all got together and they're like, oh, let's fake the temperature readings. Because Representative Jeff Duncan is an ignorant fool who desperately needs an education. And I can go on with 10 other examples, right? And you know what would have happened? All of a sudden, the Republicans would have been outraged. I don't play goddamn defense, I play offense. And there's so much offense to play. And Duncan would have been like, oh, how dare someone say that I should get an education? Goddamn right. All these Republicans, they're all crooks. 100% crooks. $75 billion they took home. It's gone, we're never gonna get it back. There's not gonna be any windfall profits tax. Guys, get the irony of this. The industry that creates the worst effect on the planet and might literally get us all killed because of climate change. According to 99% of the world's scientists, it's just like the movie Don't Look Up. It's exactly like it. They're like, it's coming, it's gonna wipe us out. The industry that creates that is also the single most profitable industry in the world. And the Republicans go, no, they should drill more. They should take public lands that were for your enjoyment and your family to go fishing and hiking, etc. We should sell it off to these sons of bitches. By the way, we also should get almost nobody back for the American people. It's our natural resources. And guys like Jeff Duncan go, no way, man. That's Chevron and ExxonMobil's. That's theirs. They should have it all. And by the way, they should give me 0.01% in a legalized bribe so I can come out here and kiss their ass. Hey, Jeff Duncan, you ignorant fool. Your family is also in danger. There's no talking to idiots like Jeff Duncan. Total moron. You go get a goddamn education. You sorely, sorely need it. Farron.
The total, by the way, is a little over $600,000 that Duncan's gotten over his career from oil, gas, and electric utilities. But the other part of this too is, he's sitting there saying, natural gas is how we got energy independent here. Educate yourself. All right, let's educate folks on natural gas, which, by the way, is primarily made up with methane, which is just about one of the worst greenhouse gases we can spew into the atmosphere. That's what natural gas is. Over its lifetime, most natural gas is actually dirtier than any other fossil fuel. Sometimes, if it's fracked gas, even dirtier over its lifetime than the burning of coal. And here we have this numbskull sitting there saying, y'all aren't educated. Nope, seems like you're the one that has no friggin' clue what you're talking about, especially considering the fact that you're talking about a bill regarding the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, but you're up there talking about natural gas and drilling for natural gas, which has zero to do with the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. So not even sure why he's bringing that up, other than, of course, to repay his donors who gave him more than $600,000. And he's got to do whatever he's got to do to make sure they get their profits back so that they too in the future can buy back all their stock.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. When I'm talking to somebody and they tell me that they're Republican, I assume they're ignorant. I assume they know almost nothing about politics or policy or anything. That they listen to morons like Jeff Duncan. And they're like, oh yeah, fracking, that's saved the planet. That's what, yeah. You know what happened here? A quick story. Rex Tillerson, former CEO of ExxonMobil, former Secretary of State for Donald Trump. ExxonMobil did tons and tons of fracking, right? And he publicly defended it. Oh yeah, fracking's awesome. It's good for the environment. Oh yeah, we're saving the environment by drilling and releasing all this methane into the air. And just coincidentally, some other company was going to do fracking near his house in Texas. You know what he did? He joined a local group protesting the fracking near his house. Because it's so safe, right? Right? Jeff Duncan is one of the dumbest people in America. It's too late for him to get an education. He should just give up and go home.
I like that as a secondary career option. That said, we do have to take our second break. More to come after this.
Back on TYT during the social break here. All right, let's go to our members. Boomer Dragon Cat says, I wish we had the algorithmic power on social media to get out progressive truth, to power messages the way that the right has to get out their blatant crap. Well, good news for you. That is literally exactly what we are working on, okay? So it's not ready yet. It's getting closer and closer. Every once in a while you hear me talking about a platform for change or a change machine, etc. We're building it, brothers and sisters, and it ain't easy. So if you can be a member, that would help a lot. You can do the join button. You can do tyt.com/join, dyt.com/spin. You can do any of those. It makes a big difference. But yes, look, my idea was there's all these algorithms that drive horrible things into the world. And why? Because it's easier. Because the bad part of human nature is so easy to tap into, right? Yep. And it exists. There's no question about it. You're seeing it everywhere. So all those greedy people that run those algorithms thought, well, good, I'll tap into that and I'll make billions and billions of dollars, and they did. I have a different idea. We tap into the good part of human nature, which also exists, and build an algorithm for that. It's very difficult, but I believe it's possible. So let's see what happens. But at least there's somebody, you should know, there's someone trying. So I hope there's a little bit of hope for you out there. Super Ken one with a very nice comment, appreciate it. Wrote in, while I already give monthly at the producer level, I'm so impressed with the start of this Friday's show. I'm giving an additional $250 because of your priceless progressive news coverage. TYT Army, always and forever. Thank you. Jeez. Thank you, we really appreciate it. And we're gonna get it done, man. We're gonna work together and we're gonna get it done. So, and I'm never gonna stop. Just a minute.
I might. Okay. I'm getting really tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought we'd be done by now.
Yeah, no, we're not. But God, if we win, look, the title of my book is Justice is Coming, How Progressives Are Going to Take Over the Country and Americans are going to love it. Okay, it's right here, right? tyt.com/justice if you want to pre-order. But that's not the point. The point is, I want to tell you the title is about how we're going to take over. And I know it's so hard to hope now, but I have it. I explain it in the book. We just, but we're in a critical window of time of madness, and we have to push past the madness to get to the other side. So, anyways, the throat goat dragon with another nice comment. Cenk, John, and Farron on the same panel. We all could die from an overdose of manliness. That's funny. That's funny. Thank you. We appreciate it, though. All right, we'll be right back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, John, and Farron with you guys. John, go.
Lots of important stuff to get to. Some of it a little bit dense, but also very spicy. If you're into like spy thrillers and legal thrillers and stuff like that, take a look at this. Back in 2019, just a few weeks after Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report was released, Donald Trump decided that he wanted to have an investigation of his own. He'd been reading stuff on 4chan and it seemed very plausible. And so he decided to have some of his goons look into some of these things that were going around. Egged on by Trump, Attorney General William Barr, who, remember, was just a few weeks out from putting out his letter before the Mueller report came out that lied about its contents and was eaten up by conspiracy theorists online, turned to a hard-nosed prosecutor named John Durham and later granted him special counsel status to carry on after Mr. Trump left office. And so the idea that they were investigating was this theory that there was some sort of massive conspiracy, a deep state thing, a Q thing, I don't know, where the investigation of Donald Trump was being driven by, that they were breaking the rules in their investigation, they were ignoring inconvenient facts, doing whatever was necessary to get Donald Trump. And so they decided to investigate those people, and as new reporting is coming out and revealing, they ended up doing all of those things that they were accusing the other side of, and thus far, 4 years later, have come up with diddly squat when it comes to their investigation. So it's been 4 years. It was actually longer than the Russia investigation that spawned it. Mr. Durham's work is coming to an end without uncovering anything like the original deep state plot that was alleged. So the New York Times did interviews with more than a dozen current and former officials, revealing how an array of previously unreported episodes that show how the Durham inquiry became roiled by internal dissent and ethical disputes as it went unsuccessfully down one conspiratorial path after another. And along the way, understanding that they had close contact with this guy and he was coming up with absolutely nothing, both Donald Trump and William Barr kept pretending that there was something there, which led to endless monologues by Sean Hannity about how the other shoe was about to drop and all of that, but they found nothing. So what are some examples of these episodes that we hadn't previously known about? Well, Mr. Barr and Mr. Durham have never disclosed that their inquiry expanded back in the fall of 2019 based on a tip from Italian officials to include a criminal investigation into suspicious financial dealings related to Mr. Trump. That's interesting, spicy even, but the specifics of the tip and how they handled the investigation remain unclear. Mr. Durham has brought no charges over it, and one has to wonder if he did come across something, would he reveal it? Would he investigate it based on what the origin of their investigation was? You can feel free to believe that for some reason. Also, Mr. Durham used Russian intelligence memos that were suspected by other US officials of containing disinformation to gain access to emails of an aide to George Soros, the financier and philanthropist who is a favorite target of the American right and Russian state media. Mr. Durham used grand jury powers to keep pursuing the emails even after a judge twice rejected his request for access to them. In the end, the emails yielded no evidence that Mr. Durham has cited in any case he pursued. We've got a couple of other spicy little elements of this, but I think that that's enough to get this conversation started. What do you both think about this?
Yeah, so it turns out they were wrong about everything. They said, oh, it's the deep state, and it's gonna be, Trump said many times, the worst thing that's ever happened in America. Like, he almost literally said that, right? And so they investigated the FBI. Good news, Department of Justice, they have access to the FBI. They looked through all of it. Turns out, no, there was no political motivation. And they found not one shred of evidence about it, nothing. Because you know why? It wasn't a political investigation. It was started by an Australian diplomat saying, I talked to somebody on Trump's team, and which was true. And he seemed to know about that Russia had the emails before it was public. And so the FBI is like, oh, how did he know before it was public? And so that's part of the reason that they started an investigation. Perfectly legitimate. Every judge that looked at it thought it was perfectly legitimate. They looked through all of the FBI's information, nothing to indicate that it was political or anti-Trump. Then they looked at the CIA. Nothing to indicate that the CIA had done anything against Donald Trump. And these guys, Durham, and there's an expert quoted in the New York Times saying that they had worked with Durham and Barr earlier in their careers, and they were serious, legitimate prosecutors that were, non-lunatics, let's put it that way. And he was quoted as saying, I don't know when they drank the Kool-Aid, but this is so weird. None of what there's like, none of it is true. None of it is close to true. But by the way, now that the Durham report, which was supposed to be, it's gonna show Hillary Clinton and the FBI and the CIA all worked, blah, 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 blah. Now that it's been proven that it was, no, none of that was shown. There was no evidence of it. And even Barr and Durham, enormous goddamn liars, okay, and I've got some of their lies for you here. They come out and like, oops, I guess it didn't happen. Not one right winger will be convinced of it. They will just go back and go, who cares? We didn't have any evidence that Trump won the election. We didn't have any evidence of a pedophile ring. We didn't have any evidence of anything. It doesn't matter. We're gonna say it was the deep state anyway, because Republicans don't believe in facts.
The Durham grand jury that he had actually had impaneled, it disbanded, I think 3 or 4 months ago. So effectively at that point, he lost any authority to subpoena anybody, to issue any criminal charges. Like the grand jury, again, they've been gone for months, yet for some reason, Durham is still technically in this position. He's still on the payroll. Why has Merrick Garland not come out and said, hey bud, I don't know if you realize this, but you're done. You can go. We don't need you here. So that's a big question I still have about all of this. Like, why is he still doing this when we know it's over? And he knows it's over. The second question is, how dang corrupt do you have to be when your own people go over to Italy, beg these officials, hey, I need you to help us discredit this, and instead they're like, yeah, we've got some things here that probably show some financial crimes by your guy. So instead of helping you, we're gonna tell you that the guy that hired you is probably a criminal. And the report says that Durham and Barr didn't want to do it, but they both felt this tip from the Italian officials was so credible that they had no choice. So again, little weird. We don't know what they did with it. We don't know if they did anything with it. They swore they would, but they thought it was credible, even though they were actually there to get information to discredit Mueller. Totally wild chain of events that happened there.
Yeah, I want to pick up on what Farron said, because Barr and Durham at this point have drank the Kool-Aid when the Italians tell them this is a financial crime and here's evidence of Trump's financial crime. And they don't want to see anything like that. They had to come for the opposite reason, as Farron just explained. And they're like, whoa, that's really bad, okay? And that's the only real criminal investigation that comes out, except we don't know what happened with it. So to Farron's point, Merrick Garland, what are you doing? What, are you just gonna let him bury it for years? Apparently, there was such overwhelming evidence that even Barr and Durham were like, oh, yeah, Trump might have committed financial crimes. You wanna get on it? No, he's, oh yeah, probably in the 3rd term or something, we'll get on it. Yeah. The Democrats are so pathetically weak. It's just unbearable. Meanwhile, I found a quote from Trump. He said about the deep state and the FBI, et cetera, framing him and working together for the Russia hoax. This exact Durham investigation, he said, quote, it is the single biggest political crime in the history of our country.
I've heard Sean Hannity say that many times. I've heard Tucker Carlson say that. In their defense, they have said that same thing about many, many different things. It's hard to keep track of all of the things that are the worst crime ever. I would love to find out what was going on in Italy. It makes one wonder. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, admittedly. I'll leave that to Farron. Can nobody else look into it? Like, do we just have to wait for Durham? Like, I feel like Merrick Garland could hop a flight to Rome, ask a few questions. Is that illegal? Is it like a double jeopardy thing? Only one person gets to look into a time. I don't understand it. As to your first question about what he's still doing after they've disbanded the grand jury, it's just nice to have a hobby, you know? And he probably doesn't want to have to pack up his office, so he's just gonna stick it out for as long as he can. I understand it, a rough job market. But to really demonstrate, I think, how little there was to their big conspiracy theory, I'm actually gonna use a piece of evidence that's gonna seem weird at first. It's the one thing that they did find. So here's what they found. I'm gonna jump ahead of the last graphic. Durham's only charge so far against the government official was back in 2020. It stemmed from a referral made by Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz, who found that an FBI attorney had altered an email when trying to get a sign off on a 4th round of FISA surveillance on Trump campaign aide Carter Page. The attorney, Kevin Kleinsmith, pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 12 months of probation. But the judge in his case concluded he didn't have political motives and was instead engaged in bureaucratic corner cutting. He knew that he could get it, he didn't want to go through it, so he just did the thing himself. So that's illegal, it should be illegal, he should do time for it. This is the FBI, the CIA, all of these groups who I think we can all agree have not been averse to breaking the law in the past or having ideological motives for what they do. And after 4 years of investigating, all you found was a guy who faked a signature to save himself some time. How do you not accidentally stumble across more corruption, malfeasance, crimes in the CIA and the FBI? This is the biggest issue for Trump, is that he has always and forever been surrounded by utter incompetence, who even in a place utterly ripe with criminal activity and corruption, all that, they can't even accidentally come across anything. Any final thoughts, Cenk?
Yeah, so now Barr is finally turned on Trump because Trump, apparently he had a limit, right? And Trump was like, okay, now Barr this entire time is telling Durham, go get him. They're having steak dinners together. They're getting drunk together. This is all in the story, right? And Barr is going out on TV and they have quotes from him in the New York Times story where he's like, this is all worse than we expected. Boy, wait till you find out what's in the Durham report. Even though he knows there's no evidence at all, okay? These guys are the worst people on earth. But even Barr, when Trump said after the 2020 election, why don't you just make up that we won the election? Barr was like, well, that seems a bit much, right? Like, then we might all go to prison because that's kind of a coup. And then he finally realized, oh, okay, Trump's a bad guy. You don't say, Bill, you don't say. But the reason I tell you that is, because MSNBC is going to try to rehabilitate Barr's reputation any second now, okay? Don't believe the hype. Barr and Durham are terrible people, okay? And so nothing should resuscitate Barr's reputation, despite the fact that at the last second he didn't agree with Trump. Yeah. Oh yeah, we should destroy America together.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I like to look at John Durham at this point. He's basically Milton from Office Space. Like, you were basically let go a long time ago because you don't have a job to do anymore, but due to a glitch, you're just still getting paid for this. So maybe it's time for Merrick Garland to be like, you know what, we're gonna fix the glitch. You can stay here if you want, but you're not gonna get a piece of birthday cake. You're not gonna get a paycheck. It's really time for you to go. But on your way out, Merrick Garland needs to ask him, like, by the way, can I just have those documents that those Italian officials gave to you? I just need to look at them real quick, just to see if I need to go get Jack Smith to go down another tunnel to investigate Trump further. I mean, yeah. I almost hate to say we need another investigation because there's about 1 million of them happening, but when you have foreign officials coming to your Department of Justice saying, yeah, your guy did some crimes, could you fix this? That seems pretty credible. Seems like something we ought to be pursuing at this point.
Durham's last words in the office are going to be, that's my stapler.
Durham doesn't like salt on the rim, big grains of salt. Anyway, that's way too serious of a last story to transition to a fun second hour in. We need a palate cleanser. Here is some just raw, undiluted insanity.
Why should we stand back and let our biggest trading partner, the country with which we share the longest border, and actually, I could just say a great country. I love Canada. I've always loved Canada because of its natural beauty. Why should we let it become Cuba? Like, why don't we liberate it? We're spending all this money to liberate Ukraine from the Russians. Why are we not sending an armed force north to liberate Canada from Trudeau? And I mean it.
So one of the regrettably most popular voices in cable news is advocating for invading Canada because of something having to do with vaccine protests or something. It's stupid. It's so stupid that we shouldn't be burdened by this sort of thing as a culture, as a people, but we are. Cenk, should we invade Canada? Does he have a point? Is Trudeau a dictator?
First, I'd like to say blame Canada. Okay, look, when I saw the headline, I was like, nah. Even Tucker, a guy who says you should, laser your crotch so that you could be more of a man, or whatever that thing that he was pushing was.
Like microwave your crotch.
Okay, to be fair. Okay, so
put it on the popcorn setting.
I'm like, no, he's trolling. This is not real, right? He must have been mainly joking with people. And then I started watching the clip. In the beginning, it seems like he's joking, and I'm like, I knew it, right? No, by the end, you saw the clip. He's like, no, I mean it. We should invade Canada. By the way, this is the same Tucker Carlson that Glenn Greenwald, Jimmy Dore, et cetera, say is anti-war, and that's why they like him so much. And that's why that Tucker Carlson is more progressive than Democrats, because he's anti-war. But he's saying, because I don't like the Canadian Prime Minister, I think we should invade. Okay. But the right wing will find that plausible. I don't mean the politicians, but although you never know. But I bet his entire audience is like, interesting. All right, go ahead, Farron.
Well, the scary part about Tucker Carlson is that he is so influential with the right that if he wants to keep this up, if he wants to continue saying invade Canada, we'll be like 2 weeks away from a Republican politician showing up at the UN with a little vial saying, this is Canada. They've got these weapons of mass destruction. We need to liberate them, to save. I mean, that is sadly how influential Tucker Carlson could be and is actually. So I'm almost curious, as just an experiment in humanity, to see if Tucker can just keep it up, to see if we can then get Republican politicians to go full crazy and say that we should invade Canada. I think Tucker should stay on it, because I really want to see if our country is just that far gone.
Yeah. So guys, I joke around a lot on the show, right? I remember this has now become a bit legendary. Over a decade ago, I joked around about some guy was having sex with a horse. We were kidding around about it, and I say, "Is it a big deal if the horse is getting it, etc.?" And then at the end, I say, "Well, the horse would say, is it a big deal? Nay, right?" That doesn't even make sense. It's a sheep sound. Anyway, okay. So it's the most obvious joke in the world, and people are like, no, that's it. By the way, including the New York Times, pretended that bestiality was part of my campaign platform. Okay.
Tax breaks for.
So I tell you all of that. By the way, now there's like thousands of people watching this going, oh, that's a reference to, okay? So now I tell you that because the last thing I'm gonna do is pretend somebody is serious when they're joking, right? And I would never say like a joke and then go, I mean it, and then leave it at that. Because then you would think that I mean it, right? No, he's not joking. And now, does that mean he's serious, like that he literally wants to invade Canada? No, Tucker has concluded my audience IQ is not in the double digits, okay? And I can get them to do anything, I can get them to believe anything, I can get them to be outraged by anything. And by the way, I also wanna troll the entire rest of the media, because and look, and I tell you this all the time, I feel conflicted about covering these things because he gets us to talk about him, and that's what he wants. And you think, but that's negative publicity. It isn't for Republican voters. For Republican voters, when they see us making fun of Tucker Carlson for wanting to invade Canada, they think, Tucker's onto something. So like, that's why he's constantly saying one insane thing after another to get that attention, because there's no downside. Whereas if we said crazy things like that, well, we'd never be allowed in anywhere in media. We're already not, just because we say it. Yeah, you know what we say about Canada? We say that they have drugs, same exact drugs as us, and the same exact from the same exact company, et cetera. That's sometimes 1/10 of the price of our drugs, and that maybe we should go. We should have the same laws as Canada, so the drug prices could be 20%, 10% of what they are now. And then mainstream media is like, oh, that's terrible. Look at these crazy radical progressives. Okay, and so it would have massive downsides for us, but mainly from our own audience. Imagine if we came out here and we're like, Guatemala, gotta go. It's gotta go. We gotta invade. People are like, what are you, nuts, right? But his audience does not mind insanity, and he knows it, and that's what he's taking advantage of.
Yeah. I think you're onto something. I think this proves like how actually important the stakes are in the culture war. Because they say that like young men, if they're sexually frustrated, they might lash out with targeted acts of violence. Well, it's been a couple months now where Tucker Carlson can't get a boner off of a piece of candy, and now he wants to invade a neighboring country. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think he's feeling a bit pent up.
I see.
It's all coming together now. It's all coming together.
Yeah, that and the microwaving his balls.
See, we don't mean it. Okay, just to be clear.
I mean it. Talk about me. I mean it. His balls are crispy brown, and he hasn't busted. I'm not gonna continue the sentence. But anyway, talk about me.
Okay. All right. Everybody check out Ring of Fire. Excellent show that Farron Cousins hosts, as you could tell here. Great to have you on, Farron. And Damage Report also exists. Just played 11th anniversary for John on the TYT network. Everybody check out Damage Report. This second hour stories, believe it or not, a little crazier. We'll be back.
Our system is inherently rigged against the will of the people.
They have 50% of the vote, and in a democracy, they should have 50% of the seats.
But if you live in an insanely gerrymandered district, your vote functionally doesn't matter.
We drew the map in a way that even though we get 50% of the vote, we're gonna get 13 out of the 18 seats.
You don't actually have the ability to translate the will of the voters in your area into actual government policy.
They should not be allowed to gerrymander these districts. We should actually have a democracy.
I've been honest with him. Like, yeah, I was upset with you and I shouldn't have done it. But instead I was like, I'm just trying to protect my engagement ring.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor or concern for whose toes we might step on or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
Indisputable has been named the fastest growing news TV show in the United States of America, compared to all shows on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and roughly 30 others. What do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable. Donald Trump radicalized citizens. He's the chief terrorist. Republicans still want you to think that critical race theory is the greatest evil. that can happen in K through 12 education. It's not even taught. I guarantee you this, David. If he would have taken a knee during the national anthem to bring awareness to the need for more money for cancer research in America, he would not have had that response. It was the fact that he took a knee for black folk and brown folk. You rather pick the voters because you're scared of the voters picking the politicians. It frightens you. But we coming. When you are in a privileged position, equality looks like oppression to you. The Karenicity runs deep in this one. We provide a mirror for reflection and a mirror for correction.
So what if I have 35? Don't hit me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
So let's put up the graphic of this Karen in peak performance. Boom. They want anarchy so they can start creating their own rules.
Can you share with me some examples?
When they were running around during the terrorist attack on January 6th saying, hang Mike Pence. So those are the people I'm talking about. That's a problem, correct? You work for Mike Pence, stand up for the guy. Do not allow the ideology of politics to evaporate the humanity that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, so I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reformed in this country, so I won't stop. And you won't stop either.
Drop it. All right, look at this great power panel. Cenk Uygur, Ben Glebe, Jackson White with you guys. Jackson and Ben are both on Rebel headquarters, so make sure you're checking that out. Some great videos there. All right, Ben, we got a lot to get to. Important story next, so take it away.
The story is very intense. Let's get right to it.
When you saw it, what was your reaction?
I was outraged. It was incomprehensible to me. It was unconscionable, and I felt that I needed to do something and do something quickly. I don't think I've witnessed anything of that nature in my entire career.
That is Memphis Police Chief Sarah Lynn C.J. Davis explaining what we'll see in the arrest footage of Tyre Nichols, which is set to release sometime right about now, this evening. Davis claims that the footage shows an event as bad, if not worse, than the beating of Rodney King. Content warning, the image you're about to see is very graphic. Viewer discretion is advised. Tyre Nichols was beaten by police on January 7th and died in the hospital 3 days later. Here's this photo of his injuries you're looking at right now, as well as a photo of the 5 officers who killed him. So far, we do not have much information on what exactly happened in this killing, but here is what we do know. According to the Memphis Police Department, the confrontation took place only a few blocks from Tyre's home, a couple hundred feet. Tyre was pulled over for suspected reckless driving, but we still don't know what they claim to have seen. They have no evidence to prove this reckless driving. Quote, we've taken a pretty extensive look to determine what the probable cause was, and we have not been able to substantiate that. Doesn't mean something didn't happen, but there is no proof, according to the police chief. It seems the policemen were looking for a fight when they pulled Tyre over that evening. From the beginning of the encounter, the chief said, the officers involved were riled up. Quote, the escalation was already at a high level, Davis said. The nature of the traffic stop was very aggressive with loud communication and escalated from there, she told CNN. And here's what happened next. Take a look at some more video.
the nature of the stop, very aggressive, loud, communication. And it just rose from there. It escalated from there. Mr. Nichols was able to get away from these officers, and they found him again at another location. And at that point, there was an amount of aggression that is unexplainable.
Chief Davis went on to say in the video that you can hear Tyre call out for his mom. Ben Crump, an attorney for the Nichols family, said Nichols was tased, pepper sprayed, and restrained during the encounter. Another of the family's attorneys, Antonio Romanucci, said police beat Nichols for 3 full minutes. He was a human piñata for those police officers, Romanucci said, adding at one point that the video showed an unadulterated, unabashed, non-stop beating. When he said this, he was standing next to Tyre's mother, who openly wept at hearing that description of the brutal beating of her son. After the police finished beating Tyre, they failed to immediately request medical assistance as well. There was an elapsed period of time before getting medical help for Nichols after he was injured during the traffic stop by Memphis police officers, Mulroy said. After some period of time of waiting around afterward, he was taken away by an ambulance. Tyre's stepfather, who has seen the police officer's body cam footage, said this: "The most telling thing about the video to me was the fact that it was maybe 10 officers on the scene and nobody tried to stop it, or even after they beat him and they propped him up against the car, no one rendered aid to him whatsoever. They walked around smoking cigarettes like it was all calm and like, bragging about what happened. He was sitting there and then he slumped over and an officer walked over to him and said, 'Sit back up,' while he's handcuffed. So he had to, they prop him back up and he slumped over again and they prop him back up again, but no one was rendering aid. I saw some fire department people come out and they just walked around and nobody showed him any aid, and they're supposed to be trained in first aid. By the time the paramedic truck pulled up, that's when we couldn't see anything because the paramedic truck blocked the camera." 3 days later, Tyre died of excessive bleeding. An autopsy has yet to be released. Last week, all 5 of the officers were fired and discharged, the only bit of justice so far we've had here. Very swift action to fire and charge these officers. Martin III, Smith, Bean, Haley, and Mills Jr. have each been charged with second-degree murder, aggravated assault, 2 charges of aggravated kidnapping, 2 charges of official misconduct, and 1 charge of official oppression, according to both Shelby County Criminal Court and Shelby County Jail records. Additionally, 2 Memphis Fire Department employees who gave Tyre initial care have been fired. Tyre leaves behind a 4-year-old son. The details of this are so tragic, so gruesome, so sad. Cenk, I would love to hear your comments.
Yeah, so another heartbreaking detail. His mom, while at the press conference, was explaining they found out. So there's 2 incidents. One, they start beating him, apparently gets away from them, runs away, understandably so. They catch him again, and then that's when they beat him to death. And at that point, he was apparently just steps away from his house. And the last 3 things he said were all crying out for his mom. And she said when she found that out, she just couldn't bear it. She's like, my job's to help him. And he was right there, and I didn't hear it. So what makes these 5 guys beat a man to death like that? Look, credit to the police chief, took immediate action, fired, arrested, etc. So that's the most important part. But she said in the long interview with Don Lemon that it was against training. Was it? Because there was 10 other officers that were just sitting around. Nobody thought it was unusual. It wasn't 1 officer that beat him, it was 5 officers that beat him. None of them thought it was unusual. Why don't they think it's unusual? Why doesn't any other profession act with this kind of wanton cruelty on a regular basis? Because we teach them to be cruel. They think it's perfectly normal. And does class and race matter? Come on, guys. Look, let's just talk about class for a second, okay? Is there any chance those cops would have beat up a rich man in a rich part of town like that? I mean, the only people right now, black, white, it doesn't matter, okay? The only people saying, oh, they would have done the same to somebody like that in a rich part of town are rich people, because they don't know. They think cops treat everybody with kid gloves and treat them with respect and et cetera, and the cops are there to serve them. No, that's mainly for rich folks. There's no way they would have done this to a rich person. No way. And everyone outside of the top 1% knows that. Okay, now on to race. Look, Jackson, I'll ask you about it. I hear oftentimes, and we've covered it on the show as part of news stories, that it's the 5 cops who did it are all black, but that there's like a culture of, oh yeah, I'm gonna be even more vicious to black people to show how much I belong, et cetera. So, I don't know, tell me what your take on it is.
Well, in regards to that, that can be a thing, but it's a lot. Whether it's a police officer who's white or black, if you are of the mindset that it's your turn, to be the big guy, then you tend to take it out on people you're most familiar with. So like, among the black community, police aren't typically practically they're not popular. So if you're a black police officer, oftentimes that would put you in a psychological position where like my own people don't like me. So in regards to that, that's why it would play into it. But what's clear about this attack is this goes far beyond anything about, like someone getting pulled over and shot or police just shooting a man. They beat this man to death savagely. There was nothing but intention and sadism in this attack. And like you pointed out, if they knew that he was rich, even if he was black, they wouldn't have necessarily beat him up like that, because wealthy people can win court cases. Look at the disparities when people get caught, pulled over with little bags of cocaine. Actually, a friend of mine in St. Louis recently went through this, got pulled over with a little bag of cocaine. He's out now, but they tried to say, oh, there's fentanyl in it, and they was gonna hold him and charge him. But if he had money, they wouldn't have never held him in the first place at all. But this is just authority protecting his position of power. And police officers who do stuff like this, anything similar to this, they do it because they want to, because they absolutely don't need to do this. They wanted to do it, so they did it. And like you said, there's a culture of it. All the other police officers standing around didn't do anything to stop it. So, I mean, this is disgusting all the way through.
I just can't even understand these days how, even though this level of evil, this level of malice exists in people in a time before cell phone cameras, but we've now been decades with cell phone cameras. We've been decades with the ability for these things to be exposed. I don't even understand why people do it knowing that they're going to be caught. They have body cameras on them that are recording this.
Ben, I know why. Because police departments across the country usually bury the evidence. Unless it somehow leaks to the press and people get mad about it, I guarantee you that, I don't know what the number is. I'm not gonna pretend I know it, but it appears that an overwhelming majority of the cases, when they have like, a case of police abusing people, they brush it under the rug. I mean, why else would people think, oh yeah, I could beat a man to death? The 5 of us getting up on him when we have guns and we have all these things. He has nothing. He didn't even do anything wrong. We'd all do it because they thought that it was normal. They thought they were going to get away with it. Why? People aren't that irrational. The reason is because they almost always get away with it. I guarantee they were stunned to find out that they were going to get punished.
But that's for them sweeping it under the rug within a department. But people shoot these things on their own cell phones. Civilians do, and can release it and upload it. And so it doesn't stay within the purview of a police department. That's where I don't get it still. It's like blind rage takes over.
Yeah, I mean, that, again, like if you beat someone like that, you're obviously filled with rage and anger and rather enjoy it, like if you're caught up in the moment like that. But like Shank pointed out, I mean, what are the consequences? They may get a lot of hatred from the public, but within the thin blue line group, they're very popular, so they can just stick to that crowd. Or people like the Andrew Tates, you know what I'm saying? Like the normies would look at him and be like, oh, he's so ridiculous. But there's always, because of the internet, it allows us to congregate together. So they just put all their attention on the people who support them. And there's a lot of people who support this type of violence from the police. No consequences.
Yeah, there's no way that they do that if they didn't think that it was within the range of normal. The three of us and two other guys would never find a random guy and beat the living crap out of him and thinking there might even be cameras around, etc. No one would do that unless they thought, oh yeah, of course I'm gonna get away with it. Like they didn't know he was gonna die, but look, you're telling me those guys never beat someone before when they weren't supposed to? I bet you they did it 200 times, and this just happened to be the last one where they got caught because the guy died. So, and it's not just them. Look, guys, not all cops are bad, of course, right? And not every black cop's trying to prove to the white cops that they belong and all those different psychological things. No, there's plenty of good cops, of course. But as a general thing, are they taught who gives a damn about the citizens? Just beat the crap out of them and make sure that they never disrespect you. They make it seem like, oh, you disrespected me, so I get to break your neck, and his neck was broken, and I get to do all these horrific things to you. No, disrespecting someone does not mean that 5 guys get to beat the other guy to death. That's just insanity. But the next time you see a thin blue line flag, which I see all over the place, understand those are the guys going, attaboy.
Well, in a little bit of breaking news, the video has just been released, and so let's pray for justice in this case, and let's also pray for peace in Memphis tonight, because understandably people will be very, very upset.
All right, we got to take a break here, guys. When we come back, we've got more madness for you guys, unfortunately, but some of the fun variety, and we will also. Earlier in the show, we made fun of the right, but we'll make a little fun at ourselves and the left as well. All right, we'll be back. Back on TYT. First, don't forget to spin the wheel if you're going to get an annual membership. Perfect time to do it because you could win back your money and then some. TYT.com/spin. Obviously, you could use the QR code. Get annual membership now. Obviously, it helps the show a lot. All right, let's go to viewer comments. Dragonfire Mathematician X in the members comments section on TYT.com says, Trudeau is one of the absolute worst neoliberals and he's looking to privatize the entire Canadian healthcare system. He's hated in Canada and only Tucker could make him out to be some kind of commie dictator to excuse invading and conquering Canada. We're living in a mad world before the end. Yeah, and they move the goalposts nonstop, right? So they'll take someone who's neoliberal and conservative on economic policies and they'll say he's a Marxist. And now everybody has to get to the right of that person. So it's such an old trick. By the way, the mainstream media love that trick and participate enthusiastically with it every time. Drunk Mom Dragon writes in, Jackson and Ben, I love it. That's a good shout out for you guys. Amaze54321.
Oh yeah.
Amaze54321 says, when the police chief is saying she's never seen police violence this bad, you know some horrific stuff went down. That's the same exact thing I thought. Mickey C. the Silver Dragon wrote in, so when did running from cops carry the death sentence? Honestly, for a long, long time. If you think these videos are bad that we're seeing now, imagine what it was like before there was any cameras. They just beat the living crap out of people all the time. Oh, disrespect, you ran away from me. You didn't smile the right way. I just cannot stand people in media pretending it's an aberration every time. I can't stand it. And by the way, it's not just it's media, it's Republicans, and it's also Democrats like Biden. The other day he gave a speech about we need to give way more funding to the cops. The answer isn't taking away all cops. The answer isn't giving way more funding to the cops. The answer is reform of cops. But no, God forbid anybody should ever do balance. No, we have to go to extremes and we have to be nuts at all times. Jesus. Okay. Barely Funky wrote it on Twitch about the Paul Pelosi attack. I remember when Rand Paul was attacked, we didn't widely speculate on the reason. Yeah, not a single left-winger was like, I bet he's in a gay affair with his neighbor. Because we're not nuts. All right, back on TYT. Cenk, Jackson, Ben with you guys, but also DC and Kelly Ash. They just became members by hitting the join button below the video on YouTube. You can do it at tyt.com/join. All right, Ben, what's next?
It's time to start the war on the. That's it. The war on the word the. The AP style book, or should I say, people who work at AP Style Book, a resource that guides American journalists on how to style their writing, frequently makes changes and updates to its writing style guide. Their new recommendation is the extinguishment of the labels, which the AP says, damn, I did it again, not the AP, which AP says includes phrases like the poor, the mentally ill, and the French. Quote, we recommend avoiding general and often dehumanizing the labels, such as the poor, the mentally ill, the French, the disabled, the college educated. The writing oracle said in a tweet Thursday, instead, use wording such as people with mental illnesses and use these descriptions only when clearly relevant. The internet, I'm sorry, internet is hammering them, of course. I feel so humanized after seeing AP Style Book taking a stand against the T word, the one user tweeted in response to the AP Style Book's update. The mocking was also made perfectly by Owen Sebring on Twitter with this tweet. Instead of the Simpsons, people with Simpsonness. And the conservative Young America's Foundation actually tweeted something funny for once with this one. The AP has two scared children crying against the wall, and the word the being the scary, adorable bunny rabbit, just chilling there on the floor. The latest recommendation follows several recent updates to the AP Style Book that greatly impact how journalists cover the news, particularly politically charged topics. One recent change included the addition of a chapter on inclusive storytelling, which the AP claimed was essential to accurate storytelling. The new chapter included instruction on proper use of the term critical race theory, saying the term needed to be explained when used in a sentence. It also said the term's widely known acronym CRT should not be used on later references. Another change they recommended recently is that when journalists write black to refer to black people, that the B should be capitalized. But when writing white, the W should not be capitalized when referring to white people. More of their recent advice includes the following. New guidance on dead naming was also included in the chapter update. Dead naming is defined by the Oxford Dictionary as calling a transgender person, quote, by their birth name when they have changed their name as part of their gender transition, close quote. Quote, the AP style book is ridiculous and entirely captured by Marxist ideologues, close quote, says conservative political commentator Robbie Starbuck on Thursday. I recommend not listening to a darn thing they ever say or recommend, he says. Language is changing. Things are being updated. Not the language, just language in general. I'm torn on this. I do see the point to some degree because I have a joke in my stand-up act where I say that maybe the most racist word in the English language is the word the, because there's nothing inherently racist about somebody saying Mexicans or blacks, but when somebody says the Mexicans or the blacks or the Jews, it's a giant problem. And so I do get how that word can be grouping people in an insensitive way. At the same time, relax. It should be context dependent, in my opinion. Cenk, what do you think?
Yeah, so we're going to be annoyingly rational about this, but first we're going to make fun of it. First of all, I regret to inform you guys we are no longer TYT, we're just YT, because we found out that we were being wildly dehumanizing to younger Turkish people. And so, by the way, that would literally be in the AP style books. It refers to Turks like French, etc. And so the should be taken out of the young Turks. Are we gonna do that? No, we are not. Okay, so that goes to Ben's point. But look, guys, there's a reason why they're doing it, and the kernel of the idea is not at all crazy. But for God's sake, AP, doesn't it depend? I have never heard anyone say the French in a malicious way, right? Like, oh, the French. I mean, what is
the
that?
French sometimes, I don't know. The French I've probably made fun of.
Yeah.
Even in my first special, I did make fun of, it's the French. You know what I mean? They're a little aggressive, but not, I don't know about all contexts.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Look, one of the examples they gave was the college educated. Really? That dehumanizes the college educated? I'm sorry, people of college education. No, we're not doing that.
You would have to put the people in there, because if you just say college educated, that's like it describes something, you know. So the would be like the hardest word to remove from your vocabulary, like just as difficult as removing it or a or like, you know. So I mean, I guess like if you work for the AP or you write for them in some type of way, I guess you could enforce it there. But again, this is like the most difficult word that you could possibly try to remove from your vocabulary.
But then on the flip, remember when people criticized Donald Trump rightfully for saying we love the poorly educated, because using it does make people seem like this group that's separate of the whole of people in general. Whereas if you had said, listen, we love people who are poorly educated, that seems a little bit less harsh.
Well, yeah. I guess there are some words, if you say it at a certain pitch, it's sexy. And if you say it at another pitch, it's offensive. You know what I mean? So like there's pitch in language too, not necessarily just the word. This is a complicated puzzle right here that we got.
Yeah, well, sure. Look, so here, I can give you examples. Now I'll take the French out, I'll put in another nationality, the Norwegians.
Okay. That one's fine.
No one thinks that's offensive, right? But if you do the Jews, that sentence never ends well. Okay, it's never ended well in human history, right? So you can see why sometimes you shouldn't use the. Like, I know some old school folks do it and they don't mean harm by it, but that's really old school. 8 out of 10 times when somebody says the blacks, that sentence is not gonna end well either, right? And so there are places where you shouldn't use the in that kind of way. But saying blanket, don't use the when you're referring to any people because it dehumanizes them, including college educated people. No, you've gone too far and then you look ridiculous. But by the way, when you say things that are reasonable, it unfortunately creates a boy who cried wolf situation, because I think they should explain what critical race theory is every time they mention it. Because number one, it's a graduate level class. Almost no one knew what it was in the first place. Number two, they've made it seem like critical race theory the right wing has is when you teach white kids that they should hate themselves. That's not critical race theory at all. So it actually behooves them as reporters to explain what it is. So they have some good rules in there, but when you put a rule this broad against the word "the," you look ridiculous and then lose credibility on the things that you're actually right about.
Yeah, I think that's true. Plus, it makes sense to not call it CRT because a lot of the poorly educated will read that and be like, what do football head injuries have to do with this story? They're gonna be very confused. That's CTE, it's not CRT, it's similar. Point being, the AP does seem to be, in my estimation, far too woke lately. It's nice to be sensitive to people, but you can't be changing language recommendations this quickly to appease every group. I don't think it makes sense because yes, you want to be sensitive to transgender people and not dead name them maliciously, but sometimes you certainly for context are gonna have to say, formerly known as Bruce Jenner, is that not allowed? Or when Demi Lovato announces that she is now using they, them, and all press outlets start saying they in stories, but then I had the strong sense that she would be going right back to she very soon, and then she did. They have to update based on individual people's opinions. I also think it doesn't make sense what they advised when it came to capitalizing the B in black, but not the W in white. That has to be one way or the other, in my estimation. How can you separate people further if the point's supposed to be equality to say one race gets a capital letter and one doesn't? Not that capital letters are all that important, but if you're gonna make rules about it, it seems strangely divisive.
Yeah, it seems like they kind of just threw everything together and didn't really have like a full plan. Because like it would be different. It's like, don't say the Jews or the blacks in this specific context. But this actually to me seems pretty lazy. Like they had a huge idea, but didn't really think it out that well. I mean, look how people are responding to it. They clearly didn't think about this very well.
Well, that's what the people tend to do.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'll tell you, the person who's gonna hate this rule the most is my dad. Especially when he first came over as an immigrant, but it still sometimes slips through. He didn't, since there is no "the" in the Turkish language, he was like, he didn't know when to put the "the" in, right? So he was like, the Cenk is doing the show with the Ben and the Jackson. I mean, boy, he is gonna be in a world of trouble with the AP.
That's what happens when you deal with the elderly. It just happens.
AP's gonna ban you, Ben. That's the Ben for you.
That won't break precedent for them at all.
All right, we got to take another break. I know it's crazy, but we have so many more stories, including another right-wing hoax, including more violence from the right wing. What are we gonna do? All right. Oh, by the way, the one about the Republican congressman. Just when you think they can't get any dumber, come back and you'll see. All right, back on TYT. Let's go to Twitch first. Sat Writes All, appropriate handle as you're about to see, says, sorry, as an author, I'm going to continue to use "the" in my books. Of course, it's impossible not to use "the." Someone from Flint says, so TYT is going to become YT? Great minds, also mediocre minds. So you never know which one we are, but still, I hope great minds. I like that you made the joke at the same time. Ensign Mariner, how about we spend more time helping the poor and the disabled by getting them resources they need instead of policing people's words that aren't overtly problematic and racist? See, that actually is such a terrific point. In fact, if you're a member, $100 Blue Apron gift card, and go to rewards@tyt.com to get it. Because we're not like all of this semantics and the culture wars and the policing of the language, etc. Meanwhile, no one is actually trying to help anyone. Like there's never any discussion of like, hey, how do we increase wages? How do we get health? I mean, you've heard me say it a million times. No, it's all distractions. It's maddening. So this is a great point about that particular story. Pokeboy 808 says graduates from the Ohio State University will love this. I don't know if they will. It's very dehumanizing. But I thought the same thing, and University of Miami graduates sometimes call themselves the U. They have no idea what kind of damage they're doing to themselves. Okay, now but to the more serious.
It's not just dehumanizing, Cenk. It's the-humanizing.
The humanizing. Okay, I don't know. Okay.
Dehumanizing. We're gonna have to squeeze that in there because it's apparently it's offensive. So there you go.
There you go. Now to the serious story about Memphis. Suave 72112 wrote in, my cousin was killed in Memphis. The police stopped communicating with the family and didn't bother to inform them if they found the killer. We see a lot of police misbehavior. We don't like, how much policing did they do where they actually solved the crime, right? Man, those 5 guys worked so hard to solve a crime. Very, very, very rarely. LaRocco says, what if the officers were white? I remember it taking forever for them to get Derek Chauvin. Look, I thought the same thing. If all 5 of those guys were white, would they have been fired and arrested immediately? I don't know. But I'm glad they were, because they definitely should have been fired and arrested. Should be applied to everyone equally. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT or YT. Cenk, Ben, and Jackson with you guys. I gotta read this one comment from Super Chat. McBorg wrote in, we're living in the Stanford prison experiment, taken to its logical, lethal conclusion. You're so right that we need to re-engineer police relationships to all of us. The idea that we're all in one giant Stanford prison experiment is such a brilliant point. It's so true, I might use that going forward. McBorg, I don't know if you're a member. If you're a member though, Blue Apron gift card, $100, rewards@tyt.com. So yeah, I love how smart our audience is. All right, we got more stories, Ben.
Here we go. Yesterday, newly elected Republican Representative Corey Mills from Florida gave his fellow House members a very classy gift, a grenade, literally a grenade. It was a dummy grenade, thankfully, or at least it was an inert grenade, but let's watch Corey explain it himself.
I want to get your take on this unique gift that you are giving your fellow House Republicans. You handed out Florida manufactured grenades branded with the GOP logo, with a letter explaining that they were first developed for the Vietnam War, making it clear that the grenades are not active. What's this about?
What's it about is this dude, Lil Loopy. It is unknown how many grenades he gave out to his fellow Congress members. Regardless, it's an uninspiring start to his first term in Congress, and not a particularly surprising one, although maybe next level in the insanity of bringing the vibes of violence right back into the House. Here is what Mills is all about. So you might not be surprised after you hear this. Mills, who was endorsed by, surprise, surprise, former President Donald Trump, is among several new House members who deny that President Biden legitimately won the 2020 presidential election. Shocked, I'm shocked. A veteran and defense contractor, Mills also bragged in his campaign that he sold tear gas used on Black Lives Matter's protesters. So that's the kind of guy we're dealing with. Bragged about it. So a grenade is not a far jump from there. Cenk?
Okay, if you brought in a grenade and gave it out to all your coworkers at almost any job in the country, you would be immediately fired and probably arrested. If somebody came in here and said, oh, it's okay, it's inert, but I'm handing out grenades to everybody. It's not even close. We would fire them on the spot. Okay, what kind of lunatic does that? That's a very dangerous, unstable person. The only workplace you can't get fired for doing that is where our representatives meet, Congress. Welcome to America. Like literally the most dangerous workplace in the country is Congress. Remember, they got attacked with people chanting about hanging different politicians. And now a guy walks in, he's like, I'm a defense contractor and I hate black people and I sold tear gas and mauled their protesters. And oh yeah, the rioters that attacked our democracy, awesome. But protesters saying, hey, the government tyranny shouldn't kill innocent black men on the streets. Terrible protesters. But that's what Republicans like. I mean, this is not even a big story. I remember a time not that long ago where if a lunatic came in and handed out grenades in Congress, that would have been the biggest story in the country for the entire year. Now it's barely a blip because people expect Republicans to be lunatics. That's now normal. If a Republican doesn't act in a mentally challenged way, people are like, whoa, you sure you're a Republican? How come you haven't tried to kill anyone yet?
Let's see if he can explain why he did it before we go to Jackson for some commentary. Let's take a look at Mills trying to justify this gift.
So it's very customary for whenever people are coming in to give gifts either to steering committee or other GOP members in the freshman class, just kind of talk about something from their state or something that represents their background or maybe the committees they're on. You know, for me, example, these were all made in Florida. I'm a military combat veteran, Bronze Star recipient, and I sit not just on the House Foreign Affairs, but also the House Armed Services Committee. So I think that what they're really upset about is that I didn't actually give them one of these gifts. I've offered Congressman Ted Lieu, who's seem to have an issue with it, to make him one. Unfortunately, I can't put House majority on the back like I did for everyone else for obvious reasons. So, you know, if they would get this upset about our borders or the sexualization of our children or things like that as opposed to a simple gift, that would be really, really nice for once. But again, this was cleared through the Capitol Police, cleared by the chief, cleared by leadership, cleared by the bomb squad. It's clearly nothing more than a paperweight, but you've got people like Ted Lieu and Swalwell who are melting down over this.
That's what the House Foreign Affairs and the House, whatever committees this idiot is on, should represent it's foreign affairs and it's the Armed Services Committee. Let's make sure that represents bombing them as overtly as possible. Jackson, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, you know, typically you bring the office like gift cards to the spa or like, you know, gift cards for some video game store for their kids or something. But yeah, like Cenk pointed out, like just casually handing out like weapons, grenades being like extremely violent weapons, even more than like handguns. You know, they'll literally blow your arm off or your leg off or something like that. You know, like coming into the office with like a big box of switchblades or machetes. Grenades are more deadly than that. So like Cenk, you're absolutely right pointing out about how really kind of out of bounds that really is, you know, to just bring something like that in. But it fits right along, like you said, with the violent and crazy rhetoric of the Republican Party. And they can't really do stuff like this and then be like, oh, what are you talking about? We're not racist. We're not against immigrants. I mean, look what he just said, you know, talking about bringing attention to the border, bringing attention to everything that the Republican Party stands for. So it fits them perfectly, does it not?
Yeah,
totally. And he was only able to get these in probably because on day one, the new House Republican majority removed the metal detectors.
Yeah. I mean, look, if I'm running the House majority and somebody says, hey, I'd like to give out grenades, I say, you know, let's think of plan B. let's work this idea over a little bit, okay? Let's whiteboard it. Let's do something with it, okay? But maybe not grenades. But to Republicans, again, it seems perfectly normal. Look, I don't know if you're going to take this as an upside or whatever. I don't want anybody getting hurt. But this idiot, oh yeah, it's inert. We checked. Really? I mean, I've done 1,000 stories with guys who are like, oh no, I know the gun isn't loaded, right? So I can see them. Oh yeah, he thinks it's one of the idiot Republicans. And next thing you know, there goes their arm. So, but this seems normal to a Republican, right? Oh, this is a thing that can kill a lot of people. Here, that's my gift to you. Maybe use it on Black Lives protesters. Okay, that's the Republican Party. That's the Republican Party. Next is going to be a grenade launcher, and then a tank, and then they're going to start firing at one another. And they're like, look at Ted Lieu, he doesn't want to get blown up. What a loser! What a loser! Like black people, losers. My company used tear gas against Black Lives Matter protesters. That's what this idiot lunatic is. Congratulations, Republicans. That's your representative. Enjoy.
And to Cenk's point, when you think deadly device is inert, it doesn't always work out that way. Ask Alec Baldwin.
No, good point. Good point. And every one of these Republicans is infinitely dumber. So good luck with your grenades that are inert. All right, what's next?
Next story. All right. Let's check out this one. It's a good one.
Now they have to attack the song Natural Woman, someone who was a groundbreaker in music, probably one of her most known hits. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows the song. But you know what? Makes them feel a little uncomfortable, folks. So it's not about equality of existence. It's whatever they deem to be inappropriate is totally inappropriate.
Don Jr. is the latest right-winger to fall for a troll tweet criticizing Aretha Franklin's famous song, Natural Woman. Here's what went down. A now debunked activist group in Norway called for Aretha Franklin's hit 1968 song, Natural Woman, to be removed from both Apple Music and Spotify after they deemed its lyrics offensive. Aretha, here's the tweet from the TCMA, the Transcultural Mindfulness Alliance. Aretha Franklin's 1968 song, Natural Woman, perpetuates multiple harmful anti-trans stereotypes. There is no such thing as a natural woman. This song has helped inspire acts of harm against transgender women. TCMA is requesting it is removed from Spotify and Apple Music. The post got 300,000 views in just a few days, but turns out it was a parody site. They had initially claimed they were not a parody site, but now they say that they are. Regardless, it's an idiotic claim, and to take it seriously is very, very stupid. They added now to the end of their bio, as you can see on screen, if you think it's parody, it is. But many of their tweets prove the lack of seriousness of this group. In another post from the parody account, they stated that, quote, there have been 0 meaningful studies into the gender identities of pets. It seems meaningless, but many children learn gender from their pets. Just because you bring home a gendered pet, allow your child to choose the gender of the pet. Don't assign it one at will. They even mocked how periods could even be canceled. The post read, a period is a state of mind rather than actual state of being, and men who have transitioned can absolutely have periods and need free hygiene products. But Don Jr. did no due diligence and got big mad. Here's the rest of his misguided missive.
It's time to say enough is enough. I stand with Aretha Franklin. I stand with classic American legendary songs. We can't just erase history because a couple fringe elements in society want to do that.
I stand with people who are able to tell BS from their own BS and don't fall for every single thing. But Don's a little busy licking his lips and sounding nasal for whatever reason. You be the judge. He's done it again. Cenk?
Yeah, so yesterday we had Rudy, the A&W root beer bear, and the company was just trying to get some attention and said because everybody was being so woke, they were gonna put pants on the bear. And then Fox News flipped out and they're like, don't! The bear's genitalia should be seen by all, right? And so now it's, I can't believe they're attacking Aretha Franklin for this. look, guys, the reason is they do no research. And so you know, whether you think something is absurd, not absurd, you look at that and you go, wait, are you sure? Like, we do this in our production meeting all the time with right wingers. And so, like the story we just did, a congressman gave out grenades to everybody, all of his colleagues. We're like, are you sure? And we double check, we triple check, we quadruple check to make sure it isn't wrong because it sounds absurd. With Republicans, 9 out of 10 times, no, it's real, okay? But by the way, we do every once in a while. We'll catch some troll thing, we'll be like, nah, that doesn't sound right, etc. The right wing, they don't care about that at all. They're like, they're trying to hide bare genitalia. And they all immediately rush out there and feed the outrage machine. Jackson.
The thing that cracked me up the most about this is because I believe at the time when the tweet was originally posted, the page had like 2,300 something followers. So like, even if it was serious, if they wouldn't have brought so much attention to it, nobody would have seen it. You know, so it just also goes to show how hollow their mission is. And this is all they do. They have no plans for anything. So all they can do is this. But yeah, like literally the account had like barely anyone following it in the grand scheme of things. So, you know, they make issues out of things that nobody would have noticed otherwise.
And this story in general makes me feel like a natural woman. I just want to go on record.
All right, we got to go to our bonus episode. Members, stay with us. We're going to talk about a guy who went to hell, or so he claims. What did he see there? Well, tyt.com/join, become a member, and we'll talk about it.
Indisputable has been named the fastest growing news TV show in the United States of America, compared to all shows on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and roughly 30 others. What do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable. Donald Trump radicalized citizens. He's the chief terrorist. Republicans still want you to think that critical race theory is the greatest evil that can happen in K-12 education. It's not even taught. I guarantee you this, David. If he would have taken a knee during the national anthem to bring awareness